May God richly bless your day and your entire week ahead. So, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine spending your entire life building a legacy. I mean, you're pouring literal blood, sweat, and tears into, a movement, a business, or your family's foundation.
Oh, yeah, that's a massive investment.
Right. And then the day finally arrives where you have to hand the keys over to the next generation. But here is the massive stressful catch. You are absolutely 100% certain that the people taking over are going to mess it up.
Yeah, that is terrifying.
With absolute certainty that they are prone to making terrible, destructive mistakes. So how do you engineer a system that guarantees your life's work actually survives after you're gone?
I mean, it is the ultimate dilemma, really, for any founder or visionary.
Yeah.
You can't manage people from beyond the grave, so you're forced to design an infrastructure that outlasts their inevitable human failures.
And that profound puzzle is exactly what we are unpacking today. For this deep dive, we're pulling from some incredibly detailed notes found in two comprehensive study Bibles. So we have the Holman Study Bible and the NAA, which is the Nova Almeida Actualizada.
Right, and the NAA is particularly fascinating because its Portuguese translation nuances really capture the raw emotional and legal weight of these ancient proceedings. Sometimes English just smooths that over.
Exactly. So we are focusing exclusively on Deuteronomy chapter 31 today, and our mission here is to explore this really dramatic transfer of power from Moses to his successor, Joshua.
It's quite the handoff.
It really is. We're going to discover the brilliantly realistic ways ancient leaders preserved their laws, and we'll try to understand why an ancient earworm was actually designed to serve as a binding legal witness.
It truly is a masterclass in anticipating and mitigating human behavior. But before we can even examine the laws they were trying to preserve, we kind of have to look at the leadership crisis that forced their hand in the first place.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the urgency of this text, we really have to look at the physical and emotional state of the leader. Moses is, well, he's 120 years old.
Yeah, not a young man.
Not at all. He stands before the entire nation and is brutally frank about his physical limits. He states plainly, I am no longer able to go out and come in.
And that phrase, go out and come in, that's ancient military and administrative shorthand.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he's basically telling them he no longer has the physical vitality to lead an army into battle or manage the daily grueling affairs of this massive nomadic nation.
But it goes beyond just his physical age, right? There is a hard, unyielding theological boundary that's been set here. The study notes really emphasize that God has explicitly told Moses he will not be crossing the Jordan River into the Promised Land.
Right.
So his journey just abruptly ends here, right on the edge of everything he worked for.
What's fascinating here is how the Holman study notes explicitly highlight this dynamic. I mean, human leaders within this specific theological framework are merely representatives of God.
Okay, so they aren't the ultimate authority.
Exactly. They're only legitimate and only to be followed if they themselves remain obedient. So Moses being denied entry is this visceral demonstration to the entire nation that no one, not even the legendary founder, is above the law.
Man, that has to be an unimaginably heavy moment for him. I mean, you lead these people for decades through a literal desert, facing starvation and rebellion and external threats.
And you don't even get to cross the finish line.
Right. Instead, you have to pass the baton to Joshua. And as that handoff happens, you see this phrase repeated over and over to Joshua and the people, be strong and courageous. And Moses reassures them that God is going to cross ahead of them and destroy nations. He specifically reminds them of Sihon and Og, these incredibly formidable kings of the Amorites.
Yeah, and those historical references to Sihon and Og are absolutely crucial for morale. In an ancient high-stakes context like this, a leader doesn't just tell a terrified populace to, trust the process.
Yeah, you don't just give them platitudes.
No, you point directly to the scoreboard. Moses is grounding their future courage in the massive, seemingly impossible victories they have already witnessed with their own eyes.
Taking that a step further, it really reminds me of a charismatic startup founder stepping down. Realizing that the company can no longer run on their sheer personality, Moses is the face of the brand, he's the guy on all the magazine covers.
He really is.
But as he steps down, he has to pivot the entire organizational culture. He has to replace his daily breathing presence with a strict corporate charter. He's telling the people, look, I am retiring, but the true CEO, God, isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, he's actively trying to decenter himself so the societal structure doesn't just collapse the moment he dies. The true continuity from one generation to the next is not Joshua's charisma or his military genius. The continuity is God's enduring presence.
Which requires an entirely new administrative infrastructure, doesn't it? Because Moses is stepping down, the oral tradition,
Right.
relying on him to mediate disputes and tell you what to do every single day is no longer safe.
Right, you can't just go ask Moses anymore.
Exactly. The rules have to be codified. They must be written down and systematically communicated to every single person.
And transitioning from a living, breathing lawgiver to a fixed text is, frankly, one of the most dangerous moments for any civilization.
Oh, totally. And the logistics Moses sets up to handle this transition are wild.
Yeah.
But the text states that Moses writes down this law and hands it off to two specific groups, the Levitical priests who physically carry the Ark of the Covenant and the elders of Israel. But he doesn't just hand them a scroll and tell them to lock it away in a dusty library somewhere. He mandates a massive mandatory public reading.
Yeah, he institutes a systematic, inescapable educational program.
Right. He decrees that this written law must be read aloud to the entire nation every 7 years. Specifically, it's scheduled during the year of remission, which is the time when all debts are forgiven, and it takes place at the Feast of Tabernacles.
And the mandate for who must attend is incredibly specific.
Yeah, it's men, women, children, and the foreigners living within their cities.
That specific audience list is arguably the most radical part of the entire succession plan, especially when you view it through the lens of ancient Near Eastern cultural norms.
See, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
And honestly, where I have to push back a little on Moses' strategy here,
Oh, let's hear it.
well, if you're rolling out a vital, life or death corporate compliance policy for a nation, you do not hold an all-hands meeting once every 7 years.
I see where you're going with this.
I mean, 7 years feels like a massive, dangerous gap. Wouldn't an entire generation of kids grow up in the interim? Wouldn't people just completely forget the nuances of the laws while they're, busy farming and just surviving? Why wait 7 years?
It's a very modern critique, for sure, and completely valid for a culture used to, like, constant push notifications. But to understand the brilliance of the 7-year gap, we really have to look at the agricultural and economic rhythms of the ancient world.
Okay, how so?
This reading is tied directly to the year of remission. This wasn't just a random Tuesday on the calendar, right? It was a massive, systemic societal reset.
So you're talking about the debt forgiveness year.
Precisely. Every 7 years, agricultural debts were canceled, indentured servants were freed, and the land itself was left fallow to recover.
Wow.
Yeah. It was an economic and social reset button for the entire civilization. By attaching the public reading of the law to this specific year, Moses guarantees that the people are in a profound state of liberation, vulnerability, and really reliance on God when they hear these words.
Oh, that completely changes the dynamic. You are pairing the heavy rules of a legal charter with the absolute euphoria of having your mortgage suddenly wiped out.
Exactly.
You anchor the legal obligations to a psychological high, making it an unforgettable emotional event rather than just, a dry lecture.
You capture their absolute undivided attention. And regarding the audience mandate we mentioned earlier, the NAA study notes provide a really crucial piece of context here.
What did they say?
Traditionally, in this heavily patriarchal culture, only adult males were legally obligated to travel and attend the major annual feasts.
So expanding this mandate to explicitly include women, children, and foreigners fundamentally changes the power dynamic of information in that society.
It is an act of radical inclusion. I mean, Moses designed this mechanism so that literally no one had an excuse for ignorance. The law was no longer a secret elite knowledge hoarded by the priests or the wealthy. It belonged to everyone, even the most marginalized members of the society.
It's the ultimate democratization of the law. He's shifting the authority away from his own oral administration and placing it into a preserved text that is read aloud to every single resident.
Yeah.
He's basically saying, look, I won't be here, but the text will be, and every single one of you heard it with your own ears.
It demonstrates brilliant administrative foresight. But, as we see unfold in the text, even a brilliantly designed, radically inclusive educational system is not enough to override the darker impulses of human nature.
Yeah, things take a very dark, ominous turn despite all this incredible planning.
Yeah.
God summons Moses and Joshua to the tent of meeting, and the text describes God appearing dramatically in a pillar of cloud that stands at the entrance of the tent.
Right.
This is not a casual status update. This is a heavy, foreboding encounter.
The visual of the pillar of cloud signifies a direct, unmediated encounter with the divine presence. Whenever that cloud appears in these ancient texts, something definitive and unalterable is about to be spoken.
And what is spoken is a devastating prophecy. God drops a hammer and tells Moses, look, after you die, this people will rebel. It's not a might rebel or a could rebel, it's a certainty.
Yeah, the inevitability is stark.
And the text uses very visceral language, stating they will prostitute themselves by going after strange gods in the new land. And because of this betrayal, God says he will hide his face from them, and terrible evils and troubles will overtake them.
It's a really sobering diagnosis of the human condition. God is confirming Moses' worst unspoken fears about the people he's leaving behind.
The part that really stands out to me is that God even predicts the exact flimsy excuse the Israelites are going to use when everything eventually falls apart.
Oh, the excuse is classic.
Right. God says, in that day, they will look around at the disaster and say, is it not because our God is not among us that these evils have come?
Yeah, they will experience the direct consequences of their own actions and immediately blame it on God's perceived absence.
It is so incredibly frustratingly human. I mean, it's like leaving your front door wide open, posting your vacation photos publicly on social media, getting robbed blind, and then furiously calling your security system company to blame them for abandoning you.
That's a great way to put it.
You literally unplug the alarm, but somehow you convince yourself it is the alarm's fault.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the language being used here is deeply rooted in ancient Near Eastern covenant treaties. The Holman notes actually unpack this powerfully.
Oh, what do they point out?
They explain that the covenant between God and Israel operates heavily on the metaphor of a marriage.
Which explains the use of the word prostitute.
That is the exact mechanism at play. In this theological framework, idolatry is not just, picking a different philosophical concept or trying out a new local custom.
Yeah.
It is the direct equivalent of marital betrayal.
It's adultery.
Exactly. Because the relationship is described as deeply intimate, the betrayal is equally intimate. They aren't just breaking a civic law, they're shattering a vow.
Wow. So God predicts the inevitable betrayal, predicts their cowardly excuse, and then institutes a fail-safe solution. And honestly, this is the part that completely blew my mind when I was reviewing the sources.
Yeah, it's so unique.
God doesn't tell Moses to write a longer, stricter contract. He dictates a song. He gives Moses a song and commands him to teach it to the Israelites.
It is a fascinating, highly unexpected pedagogical pivot, really.
But why a song? I mean, they are dealing with high-stakes treason, national security, and existential doom, and the divine solution is a musical number.
We have to remember the strict constraints of an oral culture. Literacy was not widespread. You couldn't just hand everyone a pamphlet.
Yeah.
If you want a complex piece of information to survive intact in the minds of the masses across multiple generations, you don't give them a textbook. You give them an earworm.
An earworm.
Yeah, a melody with a specific rhythm and rhyme scheme is the ultimate mnemonic device.
I mean, we all experience that today. We can flawlessly remember the lyrics to a pop song we haven't heard since high school, but, we struggle to remember what we had for breakfast yesterday morning.
Exactly.
The music just bypasses our logical filters and embeds itself directly in our memory.
And beyond just being a clever memory aid, the text specifically designates this song as a witness against them. To understand why, we have to look at ancient suzerain vassal treaties.
Okay, let's define that for a second. So a suzerain vassal treaty is basically a legally binding contract between a dominant emperor, the suzerain, and a lesser conquered king, which is the vassal, right?
Precisely. It is the dominant political structure of the era. And in those ancient legal contracts, you always had to call upon witnesses to observe the agreement.
Who were the witnesses usually?
Usually, these were the gods of the respective nations. Here, God is functioning as the suzerain. But instead of calling on foreign deities, he provides this song to function legally as a witness.
That is wild.
When the people are eventually in exile, suffering the consequences of their broken vows, they might lose the physical scrolls, right? The 7-year public readings might cease. But they will find themselves unconsciously humming that tune.
It's an inescapable psychological failsafe. The song itself testifies against them from inside their own heads. They are literally carrying the prosecution's evidence inside their own vocal cords. That is haunting.
It ensures that even in the absolute depths of their rebellion, the truth of their original agreement is just vibrating in their throats. They are forced to be the living witnesses to their own guilt.
Okay, so a catchy song implants the guilt internally in their own minds. But an internal feeling isn't really enough to prosecute a covenant breach.
No, it's not.
You need hard external evidence. So how did Moses provide physical proof of this contract? That brings us to the final act of the succession plan.
The book itself.
Right. Moses takes this newly written book of the law and he gives a very specific, intense command to the Levites. He tells them to place it beside the Ark of the Covenant, not inside it, beside it.
The physical placement of this document is deeply significant to understanding its legal power.
And as he gives this order, he does not mince words at all. He brutally calls the people stiff-necked and rebellious. He basically tells them to their faces, look, you guys were a nightmare to manage while I was alive and standing right here. I can only imagine the chaos you're going to unleash after my death.
He really doesn't hold back.
Not at all. And following this, he gathers all the elders and officers, and he calls heaven and earth as witnesses against the people.
He is literally setting up a cosmic courtroom.
So what does this all mean? Let's start with the book. Knowing how heavily this text relies on covenant law, placing it beside the ark can't just be about keeping it safe from the elements. It must serve a functional purpose in that ancient court setting. So why does it matter exactly where the Levites put it?
This raises an important question about the mechanics of ancient sacred space. The Holman notes synthesize this beautifully. They point out that the original stone tablets, the Ten Commandments, were placed inside the Ark of the Covenant.
Right, the core foundational document is locked inside the box.
Right. But this newly written scroll, this comprehensive book of Deuteronomy, is commanded to be placed beside the Ark. In the ancient Near East, documents and treaties were legally ratified by placing them at the feet of the deity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Ark resided in the Holy of Holies, the innermost sanctuary, and it represented the literal footstool or throne of God. So by placing this scroll beside the Ark, Moses is officially depositing the treaty in the divine archives.
That makes perfect sense. It elevates the text to the highest possible legal status. It occupies the most sacred space possible without replacing the foundational stone tablets inside. It just stands there as permanent, unalterable physical evidence in the very presence of God himself.
It solidifies the authority of the written word, transitioning their reliance away from Moses and onto the preserved text.
And what about the heaven and earth detail? Calling heaven and earth sounds incredibly poetic, but again, knowing the strict legal framework here, I have to assume they aren't just a metaphor. They're functioning as literal permanent witnesses in an ancient court setting, right?
Very much so. In biblical law, and in the broader ancient Near Eastern legal proceedings we just discussed, you could not convict someone on the word of just one person.
Right, you need corroboration.
Exactly. You needed at least two valid witnesses to establish a fact. By formally calling on heaven and earth, Moses is fulfilling that strict legal requirement.
He is using the physical environment itself as the jury.
Because human witnesses are fragile and temporary, Joshua will eventually die. The elders standing there that day will die. The priests will pass away. But heaven and earth are the ultimate enduring duo.
Yeah.
They will outlast any human generation. Long after Moses is buried in an unmarked grave, the sky above them and the dirt beneath their feet will remain as a constant looming testimony to the covenant they made.
The existential dread of that is wild. I mean, every time they look up at the clouds or look down at the soil they're farming, they are looking at the silent witnesses to their promise. It is breathtaking foresight.
It reveals a profound understanding of human frailty, the fleeting nature of human leadership, and really the desperate need for structural, unyielding permanence.
Looking at all of this together, Deuteronomy 1 is truly a masterclass in succession planning and organizational psychology. It perfectly balances the optimistic, necessary hope of a new, courageous leader in Joshua with the deeply pragmatic, sobering reality of human flaw.
It really does.
Moses knew he couldn't permanently change human nature, so he built an intricate, unassailable system around it. He instituted a massive 7-year public reading tied to an economic jubilee to ensure no marginalized person could ever claim ignorance.
Right.
He secured a sacred physical text in the holiest site to serve as unalterable legal evidence in the divine archives. And he unleashed a catchy, inescapable song implanted in their minds as a living, breathing witness.
He didn't just blindly hope for the best, He systematically planned for the worst. He engineered an environment where the truth of their obligations would survive, no matter how hard the people eventually tried to forget it or excuse it.
And for you listening, whether you are managing a massive corporate team, raising a family, or just trying to organize your own life's priorities, establishing clear, unshakable witnesses to your core values is essential.
Absolutely.
We all need those enduring markers that remind us of who we are and what we have committed to when we are inevitably tempted to drift.
We all need our own versions of the book beside the ark and the song echoing in our heads.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We've talked extensively about the psychological power of an earworm to carry a legacy when everything else falls apart.
Yeah.
If you had to write just one song, a single, unforgettable chorus that would serve as a witness to your deepest values for the generations that come after you, well, what would your lyrics be?
That is a powerful question worth pondering long after this discussion ends.
It really is. Thank you so much for exploring this ancient puzzle with us today. God blesses all the listeners.